Hello, YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about. I thought I would finally do another review on a video game because um, it's been quite some time since I did a review on a game. So I thought I would finally review um, one of my I thought I would review one of my favorite games, and that is Mafia II. Um, um, so this game takes place um, in the fictional city of Empire Bay from 1945 to 1951. So the game opens with our main protagonist, Vito Scaletta, who is you can probably tell by the name. He's Italian, um, and the game opens with Vito Scaletta um, in the midst of World War II in Operation Husky, um, and um, and that is basically the first uh, mission in the game. He takes a bullet. He's sent home. Um, he's sent home, kind of like a sick leave, um, and he reunites with his childhood friend and best friend Joe Barbaro, who is who is um, who is not yet in. Um, he's not necessarily who is already started doing jobs for one of the major who is already doing who has already started doing jobs for one of the major crime families. um, and um, so Joe is able to so they're reuniting, they're talking, and Joe, um, who I'm going to get into a little bit more a little bit later in the review, because Joe is just such a character. Um, um, Joe basically he draws up. He has like phony discharge papers drawn up, and basically is able to get him, like out of the war early, basically. And Joe's like, "Hey, like all sorts of connections and this and that." So, he's like, he's like, "Hey, you just gotta, know the right people." So, um, and then Vito goes home. Um, Vito goes home, and that's where we meet Vito's mother and sister. Um, Vito's mother and sister. Um, the game sort of, like takes off from there. Um, him and Joe, uh, him and Joe start, him and Joe start, kind of like, doing their thing, you know, doing their thing, and yada yada yada. Um, Vito, Vito takes a later in the game. Vito takes a job for Henry Tomasino, um, who is one of the, I guess you could say, one of the other main characters in the game, and I don't remember off the top of my head what family he's working for, but he is also working for one of the major crime families. Clemente, I think it is Clemente. He's working for Clemente, and he's like, hey, I got a simple job for you. He's like, you do it. You do it. It's high money. Blah blah blah. And this job ends up. Um, this job has you breaking into um, what is it? What is it? The Federal. I want to say the Federal Reserve, but I don't think that's right. Um, um, yeah. Yeah. No, I can't. I can't find the name of it. Oh wait, hold on. Um, um, yeah. No, I can't find the name of it. But anyway, um, he breaks into this. He breaks into obviously, a very, heavily guarded, you know government, guarded area. And they end up, and later in the game he gets arrested. Vito is arrested for the illegal distribution of federal ration stamps. um, and he spends about like 6 years in prison. He was sentenced to 10, but but one of the a major crime figure who was in prison with Vito and was sort of like looking after him during his time in prison, he was able to get his sentence cut short. So instead of 10, he only served 6. He only served 6 years. And and when he gets out of prison, Vito, there's a change in Vito's personality, and it's not really for the better. When he gets out of prison, he becomes much more colder. He's more comfortable with, um, I'm he's like in the beginning of the game, he's not really, it's not that he enjoys killing, but he doesn't, but it's something, that he doesn't necessarily have a problem with. He, in the beginning of the game, he's a little more, he's nothing like Tommy Angelo. And I think I talked a little bit about this in my review for the remake of the first game. Tommy Angelo, despite being, despite being, a gangster, was like, he had a much, you couldn't help but like the guy. He was, Tommy Angelo was, he was kind. Um, for a gangster, um, he had a very, very unique sense of, like likability about him. He wasn't, he wasn't, like this, like, he wasn't like, like this hard ass that, um, he wasn't, like this, like, hard ass nut job, um, you know, that you usually come to associate with, with gangsters and, and stuff like that. Um, he had a very, he had a very unique, um, and likable, personality about him. Um, Vito is pretty much the opposite, I guess you could call it. He is, um, when he gets out of prison, he becomes, a lot more colder towards towards his enemies, and towards in much more comfortable, um with the concept of like lethal force, and a lot more comfortable with um pretty much taking care of anybody who gets in his way, or goes after his family or whatever. Um and um and so the story is very much centered around Vito, who grew up in a very, very rough time, who grew up very, very poor. um he It centers around, the story centers around Vito, rising through the ranks of the mafia, and trying to better his lifestyle, and his as well as trying to pay off a debt that we learn in the game, that right after Vito left for the war, his father um, his father borrowed money from somebody. His father borrowed money from someone, and his father was never able to pay them back. Um, so he yeah, so the debt was never paid off, and because um, and because it was never paid off, the debt, every after a certain amount of time, the debt goes up again. Um, and Vito um, learns about this from his sister. So the other part of the story is Vito, as well as trying to better his lifestyle, also trying to pay off that debt. Um, that his father, that Vito's father took, um, that his father took, all those years ago, and and never paid back. Um, the gameplay is very, very similar to, um, is very, very similar to Grand Theft Auto. Like, there's not as much to do in the open world as like, if you compare like Mafia 2 to GTA 5. There's obviously a lot more to do in GTA 5. Um however, there are still a lot of similarities, um in terms of like activities and gameplay and stuff like that, to GTA. Like, for example, you can buy clothes, um you can buy clothes, you can rob shops, um, um, uh, um, you can steal cars, um, you can take um, you can take your cars to the body shop, and and customize like the wheels, the engine, um, the license plate, the license plate. You can put a design on your car. You can repaint the car. There's all sorts of different, um, much like GTA 5. There are, there's all sorts of things that, there's all different things that you can do with your car. Um, and um, like I said, you can steal cars. Um, there are side missions in the game, not as many as you would obviously find in GTA, but um, there are certain like side jobs and stuff like that that you can do, for different people in the game and stuff like that. And it gives the game a lot. It breaks up the gameplay a little bit, so it doesn't so the game doesn't feel repetitive. um Joe, the characters, one of the things that I have to praise Mafia 2 for is its story. The story is so friggin' incredible. I mean, if you this the Mafia series is really nothing that you haven't already seen from movies, like The Godfather, Goodfellas, um, stuff, movies like that. The game really, the story really, really feels like a movie. It really, really, like the way that the characters are written and the way that the story is written. Um, and, just, like the pacing of the story and all of like the twists and turns that the story takes. Um, throughout the game, just, stuff that you would never see coming. Obviously, obviously that would be spoilers, so I'm not going to get into any of that. Um, but just, yeah, there's all sorts of twists and turns in the story, that you would just never see coming. Um, for example, um, like for example, um, who loaned who loaned Vito's father the money all those years ago. And this isn't really a spoiler, but um, and this isn't really a spoiler because it tells you very, very early in the game. Vito's father, who killed Vito's father, who I'm not gonna spoil that because that was a shocker. Um, but um, but yeah, just all sorts of different just just the way that the story is written and the way that and the characters like Joe, like I have to talk about Joe because he is something else. Joe is um Joe is such a character. He thinks Joe thinks that he's just, he's all that in a bag of chips. He thinks he knows um he thinks he knows, like how to he thinks he knows he thinks he knows I wouldn't say, like he thinks he knows everything, but like he thinks he knows, like when something goes wrong, like when something goes wrong in a job, he's like, well, I didn't, well, don't blame me. It's not my fault or whatever. And just, like just, the stuff that he comes out with and um, and just the stuff that he comes out with he just he just he never shuts up. He's always doing stupid things during during like the worst possible time um and just not really I mean he's not like he's not necessarily an idiot, but like um he's not, but he doesn't always have the best ideas. Let's put it that way. Um, and but just, I mean, just yeah, I mean, he's just very funny. Never shuts up. Um, and just very um, in fact, most of the humor in the game actually came from Joe. Um, and yeah, no, this game. Um, this game is just, it's so fun and just it's so fun and the story is just so incredibly well done. The game takes place across 15 chapters um, in the in terms of the story. There is DLC um, in the game. I may or may not review it. I haven't quite decided yet. Um, but yeah, no, this game is so good, and um, the second game in the Mafia series is um, I think is definitely the fan favorite in the in the series. Like when people talk about the Mafia series, I think a lot of people will immediately think of Mafia 2. Um, my first experience with the Mafia series was actually Mafia 2, having not played the original back, having never played the original, from whenever it came out. Um, so yeah, so when I played Mafia 2, for the first time, I very much fell in love with the series. Um, and then obviously when I heard that they were remaking the original game, I was like, oh, okay, I have to play this. Um, but yeah, no, if you love, GTA, um, if you love, like Mafia, organized crime, stories or movies or whatever, I would definitely recommend the hell out of this game, because it is definitely, um, it is definitely very much worth playing, and it is definitely very much worth your time, and um, you will definitely enjoy this, especially if it's right up your alley. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know whether you played it and what you thought of it. Like, subscribe, and I will talk to you guys later. Peace.